Welcome to the stream. Today we are looking at Friday Facts 429, the Vulcanus Demolisher enemies. And I'm not sure how much I will read aloud here. I might try it, but I'm not really good at reading aloud. I think I will first just have a look at this video. It might be disturbing. There might be enemies on this video. That is one big snake. I guess I would try to actually read through the upper part now. You place your new prototype big mining drills, the pinnacle of resource extraction technology, on the closest tungsten deposit to your fledgling Vulcanus factory. A few power poles later and they are happily mining away, providing a new consistent source of valuable tungsten. A rail ramp and station just about fit in the area too, but without any rail supports in your inventory. That line isn't going anywhere soon. Transport belt will have to do for now. As you are returning to the main factory, placing transport belt to connect this new resource to your base, you feel a trembling from the ground. Big mining drills make a lot of vibrations, but this is on a whole other level. Something else must be going on. You head back towards the mining site. Across a river of lava, you see a truly gargantuan creature snake its way around a volcano. This formidable beast most closely resembles a centipede or millipede, but is larger than a train. As it moves forwards, the ground at its face is broken apart, leaving a trail of torn-up rock and patchy lava. Trees, rocks, even cliffs are torn apart by its passage. Ash is flung into the air, making an abrasive cloud that blankets its body and lingers long after it has moved on. The creature roars and speeds up. As it does, it starts shaking the ground harder. Rhythmic vibrations agitate a wide area around it, kicking up a huge cloud of ash and destabilizing the terrain. I guess that is what we have just seen. You can also see that on YouTube in 4K if you want. I think I will now try to read it quietly, or also just look at this video. Maybe looking at the video actually shows more than the text can show, especially when I read it so peacefully. I might just read the text quietly and summarize it later. I guess this video suggests that this enemy cannot really be beaten. And I wonder what kind of stuff erupts next to the player in this video, whether it was mines or just some volcanic eruptions. I guess I would like to just look through the Factorio Friday Facts first. See what it shows here. So I need to go down a bit. Yeah, this looks a bit weird, like they have first just made it out of a biter with tanks behind it, a train of tanks. I might also try to zoom out. I have zoomed in quite a bit. Not sure if this enemy is beatable, but it's quite slow, one might say. In this case it was beatable. I guess there are some different design prototypes. It looks like a slug in some cases, or just like a worm with some kind of mouth and teeth. Yeah, early concept arts. Not sure what they went for eventually. And then they have to find a path. I guess the important thing is that, yeah, Factorio textures always are first made in 3D with Blender, and then they are put into the 2D space somehow. I guess that is what this means, is drawn over the body parts, over other body parts. And apparently this is what they went for. I wonder whether it is in the previous concept art. Also want to see who actually wrote this. Arundel, the creator of space exploration and also on the developer team now. So it looks something like this, I think, the actual design. I'll have another look whether it's this spike in front and the little spikes at the mouth. Well, maybe it's more spikes in front and then even more spikes at the mouth. Maybe there are also different tiers. Quite a boring enemy. I might actually read through that rather than the description of the videos. I think the other texts were more like the description of the videos. Sadly, the scrolling isn't very fluently on the stream or ever, because I guess the streaming software demands a lot of computational power. Okay, some weapon mechanics. I wonder, that is supposed to be, I think the worm is supposed to attack the player with flames. And then there are fissures in the ground. And apparently there are territories for worms. So each territory has their own, or each worm has their own territory. And it seems like there is a starting area where there are no enemies. And maybe that one would be safe then. I'm not sure if they can get out of their territory and just attack. I will have to read that actually through. But yeah, having your whole factory demolished by such a big thing might be a difficult thing to happen, or a bad thing to happen. Yeah, you can destroy cliffs with these demolishers, but you can also accidentally lead them to your base. Okay, I will just read through this boring enemy section because this is maybe a bit interesting. The initial demolisher in-game was a basic implementation. The only weapon that was firmly decided was that the face would do impact damage. There were a lot of other ideas floating around too, but it was hard to get everyone to agree on a direction. For a while the decreed weapon was going to be that the demolisher would have underground children which would pop up like worms, worm turrets, and shoot at things. We didn't go with that for various reasons. This left the demolisher stranded in the following state. It didn't have any weapons except for the face hitting you. It was fast enough to catch you without exoskeletons, so if you don't have them and you attract attention, you automatically die. If you have enough exoskeletons though, it just can't catch you, so there's no risk. It had a staggering number of hit points when combined with resistances. It took about 3 minutes of continuous fire from an automatic shotgun firing at the face to die. Using rockets instead was about the same. The main strategy to kill it was extremely boring, just run around in a circle for 3 minutes until it dies, or you run out of ammo. If you do run out of ammo, collect more and continue. There were other ways to kill it too, but they are either even slower but more resource efficient, or slightly faster but require way more preparation. Overall, very unfun. Okay, so this was earlier when it wasn't very well developed, I guess. To start, I drastically reduced the health of the demolisher from 80,000 to 30,000 and reduced the resistances, in particular the flat reduction to damage that makes most attacks barely have any effect. This took the expected time to kill with a decent damage rate from minutes to seconds. The main difficulty of killing it now is dealing with the very high regeneration rate of 1500 HP per second. This means that when you are fighting it, you can either beat its healing with your damage rate and it dies quickly, or you can't and you need to run away. Either way, the fight is over quickly, it doesn't waste your time, and both situations are interesting. Well, I guess we'll have to see how that goes. Assuming that you lose the first battle, you can hopefully retreat and plan a new method of attack. Factorio has a lot of weapons to choose from, so this is a nice opportunity to try some new options. And in particular, this fight rewards you from or for, I don't know if this is the word, from using different weapons in combination. I guess that will also be interesting with the combat robots. I haven't used them in a while, and I don't know if you might want to be able to have a Spidertron earlier, or if you even can just unlock it on Glabber and then go to Vulcanus, or maybe just stay in the starting area of this planet. Assuming that you lose the first battle, you can hopefully retreat. Did I just read that? Oh yes. Factorio has a lot of weapons to choose from, so this is a nice opportunity to try some new options, and in particular, this fight rewards you from using different weapons in combination. Landmines on their own might not work, but landmines plus turrets might. Defender capsules on their own might not work, but defender capsules plus a prepared poison cloud plus rockets and might have a combined damage per second to do the trick. I think somehow it might be interesting to at least let my brain fly over some of the text up here. Just want to see if there's anything important I might have missed by not reading it at all. I guess I will. I just want to see whether there's anything about the enemy's HP. So there's something about piercing rounds, going into the Demolisher. So I guess there is lava opening on in the ground, maybe in front of the Demolisher. I don't know if this will actually change the terrain or if it's just a visual effect or a temporary effect. This basically again describes the scene where the player goes around the Demolisher, and I don't know if the player already shot at the Demolisher before it actually turned around and looked at the player. So yeah, there are some volcanic eruptions that can actually hurt you or demolish your shields. So I definitely know that I will not go to this planet first. At least the music is nice, but I can listen to that in a different way. I want to look at these texts as well. I guess I will actually read them through. I also want to read these, this last sentence or something. You switch all your focus to dodging the eruptions and moving away. A few seconds after you stop firing, the Demolisher slows down and turns back. That's 2 wins for the Demolisher, but you'll live another day. So I guess you can basically make sure to get away and maybe get out of the territory of the Demolisher and run away. And maybe just using landmines or activating them will create vibrations in the ground and make sure that the enemy goes that way. So I have heard that there is possibly a technique, this might be spoiler maybe, a technique to lure the enemy away from your base by bombing stuff with artillery far away from your miners. But yeah, I will try to read through these passages. The Demolisher is largely defined by our wish to have a very large enemy in the game, as explained in the Glebber enemies post, which is also very interesting. Might just open that and look at it for a moment. So this is of course where the spiderlings, the pentapods, are. If you have arachnophobia, you should maybe look away now. So there are these little wrigglers, which we know of, and then there are even uglier spiderlings. And then there's this big pentapod. So these are the enemies on Glebber, but on Vulcanus. Hello Nora. Yes, I'm doing a Friday Facts thing. I don't know if you have seen the videos already. This is basically interesting, where they have designed a big biter with tanks at the back as a prototype. I'm trying to read, but I'm not really good at reading aloud, so I'll mostly fly over the text and maybe summarize something. So yeah, I looked at the Glebber enemies post. The larger a creature is, the more problematic it is for sprite sheets. For a conventional enemy, it is width times height times directions times animation frames. That might be a big number. Width and height are automatically larger, and generally a larger creature needs more directions and animation frames to look good, so conventional enemies don't scale well. We identified early that a segmented enemy as one of the ways that we could have a large enemy. Sometimes I think there might be words in the sentence that grammatically don't make sense, but I don't know. Because in theory, we'd only need one animation frame. It would need more directions than normal to have a smooth movement. But that's the same as a train. In the earliest, most basic text-only draft of enemy types, we only had the basic category of animation, method, or movement. I won't list all the types we were considering, but it included laggy enemy and segmented enemy. We didn't know which type would go where, though. For a while, the segmented enemy was going to go on Fulgora. Interesting. This was because we knew the Fulgora landscape would have islands, so it made sense for a segmented enemy to be able to cruise the spaces between islands and give it an unbroken range. This would be another reason not to build in the quicksand. One of the problems with this is the Dune franchise. We ended up in the segmented enemy on sand direction by following the natural progression of constraints, but most people wouldn't see that and assume it's based on Dune anyway. Also, it doesn't have that unique and exciting feeling if it's too close to something you've seen before, so we decided to move segmented enemies anywhere else. I still wonder whether there is any kind of extra danger on Fulgora besides the lightning. I guess a common theory is that there might be defensive installations left by the previous civilization. I want to be able to read the whole text without having this animation in the screen, because this might slow down my stream or the scrolling. Well, I guess I will not be able to read the last segment now. After I'd finished the main prototype for Space Age, I shifted my focus to enemies. I made a new branch of the game just for prototyping enemies, never to be merged into the main game, just to prove out concepts and get something tangible for further discussions. An enemy's sandpit. Laggy enemies went to Glebber. We didn't know if we wanted it to be more of a stomper or a strafer, so I added both options, expecting one to be chosen. In the end, both survived the cut, and we even got the little wrigglers too. The freezing planet had flying enemies, and among them were the jelly-like enemies from the Friday Facts 367. I will quickly look at that. I think I know what this means. Let's just look at the bottom. So these enemies apparently are meant by that. So I guess they were cut. However, since then, these enemies have been dropped from the game, so they were teased but never actually landed in the game. The last planet has a delicate mix of challenges, and although we found a way to add enemies to the mix in an interesting way, it would make progression much slower. It might be better as a mod. So I'm not sure what this sentence means. They found a way to add enemies in an interesting way. It would make progression much slower, but they didn't, or did they? I'm not sure if this means that they didn't add any enemies to the final planet. The segmented enemy went to the volcanic planet. We didn't know exactly what it would do, so it was provisionally called things like forge worm, magma worm, and lava slug. The implementation for this in the prototype was basically a conga line of tanks with some clever code to make them follow the leader, while adding some sinusoidal movement. The leader in this case was a unit, basically a giant biter, because that already has the necessary attack logic. And I guess that's what we saw here. And this basically tries to follow the player. And I guess they all share the same health, the tanks as well as the big biter. I guess it's fun to use Biter in this way. I wonder if you could go through the snake or if that would also kill you. So I think I didn't yet read that. Moving the segmented enemy to a planet that is mostly land had a lot of consequences for the graphics. If the creature was in deep water or sand, then it would be reasonable to have most of the creature hidden below the surface, so you'd only see a few segments above the surface and gaps between them, e.g. head, gap, back, back hump, gap, repeat, tail. So basically like a sinus wave or sine wave, and some of it is above the ground. On the volcanic planet, we'd need to show all of the body above the surface at some point, and that removes the ability to have gaps between segments. I don't know if you necessarily would need to do that. I guess you could find some explanations or think of some ideas why the creature always needs to go up and down into the ground again. But who knows? To start with, I was leaning more towards the Demolisher being much more alien, a creature that's barely biological as far as we'd recognize it, something potentially nuclear powered that acts more like a force of nature as it scoops heavy isotopes from the soil. There were of course some more conventional options too. Some of these designs are more colored and contain some lava colors, I guess. And the rest is more, maybe not grayscale, but certainly more unique color. This almost looks like it might be the front of a train. I guess all of them could be the front of the train, but this would be a very spiky train. Albert wanted the enemies to be less alien and more Earth-inspired, so things progressed in a direction more inspired by a centipede or millipede. A segmented unit has problems with sprite layering by default. If a segment is further south than another segment, then it's sorted in front. When sections again, this sentence feels a bit grammatically off, but maybe it's just a different kind of positioning of words. When sections the body are rotating or turning a corner off the body, maybe? I'm not sure. Anyway, then as segments face east or west, the overlapping order changes, so a segment pops in front of another one. A way to bypass this problem is by having every segment separated by a 45-degree slice, so that with Factorio camera angle a tail segment can always be sorted under the segment before it. I made a demolisher model with 45-degree slices to prove that the overlapping theory would work, but also to prove that it's still possible to get an aesthetic design with this approach. So because this is a GIF or something, the scrolling is slow again, and maybe not sure if I will lose frames. I guess this is what they ended up with. I might look at the video at the top again later. So the design was signed off and sent to Jersey for extra details in texturing, then Lucas for some final adjustments. Thanks to Strange Pen, the Demolisher was soon in the game. Not sure what Strange Pen does exactly in the developer team. But yeah, I guess this is an interesting design. These were some bad things they discovered we read earlier. Now I want to look at this attack or offense chapter. I came up with 11 ideas for weapons that had good potential to be both effective and fun. After talking to some other people for more, we managed to get the list of good options to 13. A lot of the ideas were designed to be used in conjunction, so it included things ranging from flaming blood splashback to flamethrower holes on the sides to subterranean shockwave attacks. With a definitive list of options, there was a meeting to decide on a set that would work together well. This looks a bit like shooting fiery projectiles. A lot of them. This was probably creating lava holes. This was 2 streams of fire that maybe, or lava that actually landed on the ground. This looks more like a laser beam or a flame or a heat wave. We decided on 2 main abilities. The Demolisher would have a raw or a shockwave attack. If the shockwave hit you, you could be stunned or slowed. This would kick up a cloud of ash as the shockwave travels. The cloud would have a small slow effect. The main intention for the cloud can't be disclosed yet. But if Vulcanus is your first planet, then the additional effect won't affect you. I need to read that through again, maybe quietly, to make sense of this. I wonder if the additional effect is the slowdown or the stun effect. So you could be stunned or slowed. I don't know if this means either or whether it's random, whether you get stunned or slowed. And it's only if it's the first planet. I don't know why they would choose that. I guess this would also motivate me to spend a lot more time on a different first planet to get properly prepared for the Vulcanus experience, because if I only go, for instance, to Fulgora for a short amount of time and don't really use my presence there to gear up, then getting to Vulcanus too early might hit me even more, because if it's not my first planet, then I get this additional effect, whatever that is, and they didn't disclose this yet. But yeah, I will read the second thing now. The Demolisher would seismically trigger volcanic eruptions around a chosen moving target nearby. I'm not sure if this means the player or if it's just a random point. This would mean that when you're in combat with the creature, there's still some amount of threat. You're not 100% safe just by avoiding the head. So yeah, it can basically have a little remote attack or yeah, further away from the head. Not sure if it's near the player or just random. It seemed like a good starting point, but Kovarex was away and not part of the discussion, so we just had to hope he'd be on board with the new plan when he got back. As I developed these two concepts, I extended them a little more to work better together. The eruptions changed to be more engaging by showing the place that they will explode ahead of time. So I guess these are the potential eruptions. So you might notice this in the ground and then maybe run away from this point. But I will read further. Wow, I get a lot of cheap views. Why? Maybe I need to implement some kind of permit system where people can only post links when I permit them before. Anyway, yeah, they show the place where they explode ahead of time. This makes more sense graphically, but mainly it makes the whole battle a lot more interactive. The explosion damage can be far higher with the assumption that most explosions won't hit, but that's also great to make them a genuine threat. So yeah, if less of them hit, then of course you can make them more dangerous if you can be able to avoid them and can know ahead of time where they will hit. Now, instead of not caring about your position, other than not getting flattened by the head, you actually need to move around as different parts of the ground become unstable. It feels a lot more like a boss fight. If you are underpowered, then every explosion counts and you need to dodge a lot. If you're overpowered, then you mainly just need to make sure you don't take many direct hits in quick succession, and only a small amount of occasional movement is needed for that. The eruptions are only used against moving targets. The lore reasons for this is that it detects the vibrations in the ground made by moving targets, so it's easy to aim eruptions at those, and also that it doesn't consider static things to be much of a threat. The real game balance reason is that player health with shields is so much higher than turret health. So if the turrets are targeted by explosions, they die too quickly and it removes too many strategies from being viable. So I guess you can just do something like turret creep, and that doesn't immediately get punished. I mean, if the turrets are still too close to the moving player, then that might be dangerous, I guess. I will still try to read the rest of this, even though I didn't really read the beginning all properly. But yeah, this image really looks quite fancy. I want to open this in a new tab and zoom in a bit. I guess it doesn't really show much. So there are a bunch of belts, I guess, broken. And I wonder if the remnants, I guess the remnants might be a bit washed out by the ground being a bit weird. Maybe this is where the demolisher went through. I wonder if we could actually see anything interesting, anything that we haven't yet seen on this image. Are those just gun turrets? Not sure if they have this ring around them. Belts, inserters and assemblers, foundries, rocket silos with beacons. But yeah, I guess it's a good idea not to let the worm get to you. And I wonder if they made the green belts more green, because so far the design looked very... Yeah, that's the green belt. It still looked quite yellowish, so it would be difficult to distinguish them sometimes from the actual yellow belt, apart from the arrows being further apart. That's a thing one can notice, I guess. Not sure if there are any red belts in the image. Anyway, I will scroll up and read the rest. So, for the shockwave ash cloud effect, it being a stun was either too punishing if you got caught close to the head or near an eruption, or irrelevant in all other cases. I changed it to be more of a persistent slow, but not a slow in the way that other slows in the game work. Instead of being a flat % reduction, the effect is more like a max speed with a % of effectiveness. So I guess it reduces the max speed, but I don't know over what time frame. If you don't have any exoskeletons, then you are barely affected. But if you have loads of exoskeletons, it will take you most of the way back to your natural speed. It's good to know. So it can basically render exoskeletons ineffective. And maybe that makes sense, since ripping up the ground might make it more difficult to walk. Keeping the range of player speeds to a slower, more narrow range is an important change for a few reasons. The demolisher speed can be much lower too, so that the player is always slightly faster and can escape. But the difference with many exoskeletons is not as extreme. Eruptions can form slower and still have a chance of hitting. Exoskeletons are still very relevant though, because even a small movement speed bonus helps you dodge an eruption, especially if you've fired a weapon recently. As part of the branch, I also added various visuals for the ash cloud, trail effects and placeholder eruption effects. This branch was made while Kovarex was away, so we weren't sure what he'd think of it. The Demolisher combat was something that had resisted agreed consensus for over a year at that point. Towards the end of the work on this branch, the work started to represent a large investment of hours, which isn't ideal for something that wasn't at all signed off, but deadlines were looming and things just needed to be done. Fortunately, when he got back, it all got signed off shortly before the LAN playtesting event. So it was playable for the playtesters. However, there wasn't time for all of my scripted Lua code to get ported to C++, meaning that we had 100 plus people playing with code that was never meant to exist outside of an experimental branch. That's interesting. Territories. The territories system is a completely new mechanic. I designed a system that used Voronoi noise to make distinct regions that demolishers can claim and protect. If you build in a demolisher territory, it will get annoyed and earn its name by demolishing you, I guess, or your base. The system was built by Strangepan and Genhis. I wonder whether you can see this on the mini-map if you can activate this. I guess they might mention it. Demolishers patrol near the edge of their territory, and you can see these patrol paths from decoratives on the ground. Work in progress, okay. You can also see demolisher territories on the map. Yes, okay, that was what I wondered. It's good to know. I guess you will have to first have a radar, and I guess this map is totally uncovered. So some parts might be black at the beginning. But this means probably that you can have an early base there with maybe one or I don't know how many patches of tungsten worth of production and a few calcite mines. I mean, you probably may still use the first mining drill, the simple one, for the calcite. I'll have to read on whether that's true, but at least you can start to build things and maybe try to expand later while or after you have upgraded yourself a bit. The planet's starting coal, calcite, sulfuric acid, and most of the starting ashlands region are not covered by demolisher territories. It doesn't mention tungsten there. This gives you a safe area to make a factory and get the basics set up. The starting tungsten patch is in the territory of a small demolisher. So to get the planet's science pack, you'll either need to defeat it or engage in some guerrilla mining operations. Yeah, that might be like mining a bit, and if you notice something, run away, or take the miner and run away. We are considering adjusting the rules for which buildings in a territory provoke an attack, because we have some options such as all structures, the current rule. I wonder if that means even belts or inserters or assemblers. They might be loud in a way, but I guess, you know, foundries and big mining drills might make the most vibrations and noise. Okay, active structures or only mining structures. So I guess the current rule is a bit strict. Demolishers don't have spawners. The whole creature spawns directly on the map. If you kill one of these ancient creatures, then their territory becomes yours permanently. There is no pollution. Demolishers are only provoked by you building in their territory or damaging them. There is no evolution. Demolisher size is only controlled by the distance, from the starting area. Okay, so no evolution over time, but definition there's evolution over space. So the further you go out, the stronger they will be. I wonder if the size is equivalent to their damage and their health, or just some of this. I've found many ways to kill all sizes of Demolisher at all tech levels within reason, but for every successful way I found there are many more unsuccessful ways. I was looking forward to people encountering Demolishers during the playtesting event, so I joined different servers to watch the first encounters. I'd estimate that at least 60% of the players survived their first encounter just by panicking and immediately running away. For players that tried to fight, I didn't see anyone get a kill on their first try. Only 25% survived their first try. So I guess this means I will have to save the game a lot and maybe not venture into these areas too early, or just try to find the small demolisher that they mentioned. Starting tungsten patch, small demolisher, yeah. I wonder where that would be. I mean, this looks like a tungsten patch. I wonder if they already cleared some territories. It seems like it may be below, maybe this area might all be basically one from the demolishers. Every server killed at least one demolisher, but the ways that this happened were wildly different. Players even found one way that I didn't think would work. But I don't want to spoil successful strategies. I guess it is still successful then. Or I don't know if they might change some things there. The big demolishers are much more difficult to kill. There are ways to do it early game, but it's not easy and it's a big investment. For many players, I expect them to wait for tech from other planets before killing big demolishers. I wonder if, for instance, the Tesla turret might even help, or any turrets, because you need to place them quickly, or you need to... Yeah, I mean, I saw laser turrets in some images. But yeah, we will have to see whether they will be effective, or whether you can basically shoot the enemy and make sure that they go away from your base for a while because they don't like the damage. I don't know if that might be a strategy. Okay, combat clarity improvements. We are continuing to update the balance, but right now the biggest problem is not with the combat stats themselves, but with transparency and feedback to the player. For example, at the moment, if you alt-click a segment, then Factoriopedia shows you the body resistance, but you need to click on the head to see the head resistances. So there are apparently different resistances for head and body. I don't know if the enemy's tail is any different. Ideally, all body parts link to the same page, which can show you both sets of resistances. Likewise, we need to clarify somewhere that segments take damage individually, but all damage is transferred to the creature as a whole, which is really the head. Demolishers have no resistance to poison capsules, but it's not a hint to use poison capsules. It's just because poison damage is so weak compared to other damage types that adding a resistance doesn't make sense. The problem is that if you test one poison capsule on a demolisher, it looks like no damage is dealt because the regeneration is higher than the damage of a few poison capsules, even if they hit multiple segments, so the damage is healed instantly and the health bar doesn't even appear. The reality is that they do offset some of the regeneration, but that isn't communicated. If we make the health bar linger for a moment after any damage, then it will make the situation clearer. That's actually a good idea. These are the sort of small adjustments we will be making over the coming weeks. And I wouldn't even mind having unfinished stuff in the first version of Space Age that is released. I guess they can always release a version 2.1. Conclusion. The demolishers aren't finished. Some graphics and other small details are still in progress. For example, the eruption explosions are still the generic huge explosion, but we are part way through a more appropriate lava-based animation that doesn't obscure the player so much. We're also intending for the demolishers to have more sinusoidal motion, but some other things need to be completed first. Unlike other planets where the expectation is that casual defenses usually win, on Vulcanus casual defenses will usually lose. That's fine though, because generally they are not a threat to your base, only new expansions. Also on Vulcanus, most of what you are building in outposts is sort of free stuff from lava. Anyway, so it being demolished is not a big loss. So this basically means we can always pump resources out of lava and therefore rebuild things quickly, or all the buildings that have been built might have come from lava already, and lava is endless and cheap. Therefore, there's no need to build perimeter walls, and a typical line of turrets is one of the worst formations you can make because the demolisher will cruise straight down it. So I guess you need some kind of weird random shape of turrets And maybe you also need to, if you have laser turrets, place substations every now and then to make sure that those don't get destroyed. That would render the laser turrets useless. And you also need to use turrets with ammunition, I guess. From playtesting, there's mixed sentiment on their difficulty level. Some players feel the demolishers are overpowered, and others think that they are in a good place. Didn't anyone think that they are underpowered? I guess that's a good thing. If demolishers were a conventional enemy, then they would be too strong at the current level. But the fact is that they are not a conventional enemy due to the territory system. They don't attack your base the way other enemies do. Maybe the eruptions are a bit too lethal, but we can adjust that. Overall, difficulty seems to be okay because you have a lot of options and you are given the space and time to find the option that's best for you. Without spoiling specific strategies, the broader categories that you have are a good combination of personal weapons with well-executed combat, a static defense system that can be reused for multiple territories by luring in distant enemies, does this mean artillery that can shoot to places, or I'm not sure exactly what that means. I mean, if you have a very well-built set of turrets, then that might, of course, destroy these demolishers consistently, but you will have to lure them to this place probably. Import special weapons from other planets is the third option they mention here. And wait for more damage upgrade techs and quality to make all strategies better. I wonder if you could just combine all of these 4 techniques. Demolisher combat can be fun and strategic. Each one is a boss fight to unlock a new territory. Demolishers are definitely the toughest enemies in the game. I guess this makes them even more tough than the Stompers. These ones. And I guess those ones are not in the game. Sadly, one might say, but I don't know if they have enemies on the last planet. And yeah, when something which at first seemed impossible to kill can later be killed quickly and efficiently due to a well-executed plan, it is very satisfying. As always, face tank every obstacle and leave your thoughts in the usual places. The usual punny line to get feedback. Let's see if the rocket works. With some lag due to OBS being turned on. But yeah, I guess that's it for the text for now. I might read through this later properly.